Back in the ye olden days, Marvel was going bankrupt and needed money to stay alive. They sold a lot of their character properties to big-name movie studios, and that's how they were able to do so. A couple examples of this would be X-Men going to Fox, Hulk going to Universal, and most notably, Spider-Man going to Sony. Sony has had the rights to Spider-Man movies and hour-long TV shows for some time now, even since the Tobey Maguire era. After Spider-Man 2, the execs at Sony really started getting involved with the creative process of the Spider-Man franchise. This led to the end of the Sam Raimi directed films and the eventual reboot of the character, which spawned the two movies that are The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. While after TASM 2 did not nearly make as much money as Sony was expecting, they signed a deal with Marvel Studios to put Spider-Man back in the MCU. The deal goes like this. Marvel will allow Spider-Man to be in the MCU, Sony will pay to produce the movie, while Kevin Feige will give his creative advice. Marvel was getting a small percentage of the movie profits, and I mean very small, most of it going to Sony. Marvel gets the profits from all the toys and merchandise. Seems sort of fair, right? The fans got what they wanted, and Sony made a good chunk of money with Spider-Man Homecoming. Let's fast forward a little bit. Avengers 3 and 4 release, and now we have Spider-Man Far From Home. The sequel went on to make $1 billion worldwide. This is the most any Spider-Man movie has made with the rights being in Sony's hands. It would seem like a no-brainer for Disney and Sony to keep up the sharing arrangement, right? Well, here's where it all fell apart. At the end of August 2019, Sony and Marvel had a meeting to renegotiate the terms of their Spider-Man sharing arrangement, and it didn't exactly work out. Here's why. Disney proposed a 50-50 financial deal where it requires Sony to pay for half movie costs. And here's the official quote from Deadline. Sony proposed keeping the arrangement similar to the terms that dictated the first two Spider-Man MCU films, such that Disney would only receive 5% of the first dollar gross. Disney reportedly refused that deal. If the two parties do not return to the negotiating table at some point in the future, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is not expected to appear in any further MCU movies. End quote. And that was just about from a week ago. And now we have reports, this being from Variety, from the CEO of Sony stating that the door is closed on a new agreement. And here's the exact quote from Variety. This is from the CEO from Sony. We had a great run with Feige on Spider-Man movies, the Sony chief said. We tried to see if there was a way to work it out. The Marvel people are terrific people. We have great respect for them. But on the other hand, we have some pretty terrific people of our own. Kevin didn't do all the work. And that's the end of the quote. So it really seems like that is the end of Sony and Marvel making a deal with Spider-Man. Alright, now that we've got the facts out of the way, it's time to start from the beginning once again so I can fully get into this. And we can fully just get it all out and really just rage about this because it's really so frustrating just from a fan perspective. I am a huge fan of the Tobey franchise. I grew up with Spider-Man 1 and 2 and 3. Grew up with all of it, obviously, just like you and whoever else is watching this video. And it's just, I don't know. I grew up with Tobey, and Tobey was just such an impactful version of the character. He was just at that point I really didn't know much about Spider-Man. I knew who he was, but I was just a little kid. And I didn't, I didn't fully relate to his character until I saw those movies. Just this nerdy kid who grew up and got these powers and kind of stayed humble after his uncle died. So it just became this super relatable character. And the version of Spider-Man that Tobey plays, he's just this confident version of Spider-Man. This version that, you know, he's confident in the suit, but when he's not wearing the suit, he's just nerdy old Peter Parker. And so we had Spider-Man 1, and then we had Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 2 is just probably my favorite superhero movie of all time. I've seen it more times than I can count. I can pretty much quote Spider-Man 1 and 2. I can quote a little bit of Spider-Man 3, but it's obviously not as great, not as memorable. And those are just two solid movies where Sony just let Sam Raimi do what he needed to do as a director, right? He had a vision, and he said, hey, look, this is what I want to do with the movie, this is what I want to do with the character, this is what I'm going to do. And Sony was like, great, just do it. We made money. on Spider-Man 1, what can you do with 2, and of course 2 is amazing. So it almost set up 3 for failure because 2 was just such a good movie that it just had big shoes to fill. So when Spider-Man 3 finally came around, everyone was so excited. I know I was dying. I was still in high school, but I saved up some money to go see it. I didn't even have a job at the time, and I saved up enough money to go see it. And I honestly, when I saw it, I loved it. I mean, there's a lot of hate around the movie, but I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not my favorite, but I liked it. I feel like it tied up a lot of loose ends that the second one had left open. Obviously, they left open the thing with Harry, and then we finally get to see Peter and MJ get together, and then you get to see Peter's relationship with Aunt May grow a little. So they just, I don't know, it wasn't as bad as people were like, oh my god, that's terrible, and that silly scene with Peter doing the dance when he got the symbiote. I just think that is just, the hate for that scene is just really strong. I don't really understand it completely. I mean, yes, it's silly, but I mean, if you were to really sit back and think about it, what would a nerdy kid with Spider-Man, superhero abilities do if he got somehow corrupted or had a bad day and just, was in a mood, right? What would he do? He would act confident and be a jerk, be a bully, and that's, so Peter was only acting in the way that he thought being a bully would be like, and that is just silly dancing and showing, dancing with Gwen Stacy and showing Mary Jane that, she made the wrong decision, blah, blah, blah. So it just, I don't know, it made sense to me, and so a lot of people diss on that scene, but I think that, with what, the fact that Sony had to, ingrain their feelings of getting Venom into that movie so hard that Sam Raimi did the best that he could with that movie, and he has come out and said that he's ashamed of that movie, but I think he just, I don't know, I feel like it's not the worst of the film franchise, definitely not. If I had to say which one I thought was the worst, it was The Amazing Spider-Man 1. I strongly dislike that movie. It doesn't, when you go from Tobey to Andrew, and I'm not trying to say that Tobey was my favorite. Actually, he is my favorite. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Tobey Maguire is my favorite. Tom is great. He's just, I don't know. If they give him a few more years, he'll be better, and I'll get to that in a second. So anyway, continuing on with the rant. When they rebooted the character after Spider-Man 3, and all of the hate with that movie came out, and they made fun of that scene. We had The Amazing Spider-Man 1, the reboot, and then they casted Andrew, and I just remember when I was a kid that I was devastated, and I was so angry because I know they had plans to make Spider-Man 4 and 5, and they were actually going to shoot them back to back, and I think Tobey had a deal where he was going to make $50 million. And I was so excited for that. I was just like, wow, it's not very often you get to see movies that go beyond 3 and 4. Or, I'm sorry, 3. Yeah, I guess 1 through 3 is the standard. So it was really, exciting for me to see this character that I love so much after seeing those films and seeing that it was going to get a 4th and 5th and possibly a 6th, depending on how those do. And now it's funny looking back on that because now it's like, that's Sony's trademark. That's what they do, right? They're like, oh, okay, well, we're making a bunch of movies and we're going to have spin-off after spin-off after spin-off, and we're going to make sequel after sequel after sequel. And let me give you an example of that. An example of that would be The Amazing Spider-Man. When they released Amazing Spider-Man 2, they shortly, right before the movie came out, they announced 3 and 4 that they were going to be doing 2 more sequels. They even announced, like a Black Cat solo movie, and then they announced an Aunt May solo movie, which was really odd. And then they were actually going to do a Venom solo movie back then. I'm getting a little off topic, and that's the point of the rant, I guess. But back to the actual rant itself. So we had Spider-Man 1 and 2, and then we had 3, and then Avi Arad, who is one of the main producers over at Sony. He came in and he just had to have Venom in Spider-Man 3, and so we got this silly movie that most of the people hated, they didn't like. Then we got the reboot of The Amazing Spider-Man 1, right? And then we got The Amazing Spider-Man 2, And yeah, so yeah, I'm losing track of my thoughts here. So we went to The Amazing Spider-Man 1, and then The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, and when I was saying The Amazing Spider-Man 1 was my least favorite of the film franchise, Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out. I enjoyed it. I liked some parts of it. I like seeing Spider-Man swing in the city, and I think that's something that they nailed in that franchise. You don't really get to see a ton of that with Tom Holland's version, I guess. I don't know. It's just something that I don't feel like is as strong in the MCU version. But that's just me. Another thing that that really bothered me was the fact that they wanted to go ahead and make a Venom movie without Spider-Man. I thought that was like the dumbest decision they could have made. The dumbest, and it makes me so angry to think about it. And how can you have Venom without Spider-Man? He is like Spider-Man's, most popular villain, Venom, right? Other than Green Goblin, but how can you have this character that exists in this universe without the thing that drives him to be who he is, and that is Spider-Man? You can't do it without him, and I think it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, oh well, we have Tom in the MCU, and we're just gonna do our own thing with Venom, and we're gonna make a Venom solo movie without having Peter wear the suit first, without explaining the alien, and without really explaining how Eddie Brock is a jerk and he envies Peter, and he gets the Venom suit, kind of like in pretty much how it happens in Spider-Man 3, except a little differently. And of course, Topher Grace was a joke as Venom. So, if they would just waited, they would have waited a couple more years for Tom's version to grow into the Spider-Man that he should be, Spider-Man that I think he should be anyway. We could get that movie where Spider-Man and Venom actually meet up, and it actually had if they would have taken Spider-Man 3 and obviously taken out Sandman and taken out Harry's, which they couldn't have done because they built it up in Spider-Man 2, so you couldn't throw that away. Sandman, he wasn't needed, but on Venom, they literally could have done just Spider-Man versus Venom, and they could have called it that too. They didn't even need to just say Venom, Green Goblin, Sandman. They didn't need to do that. They could have made Spider-Man 4 about Venom. That's what they should have done. They should have teased it at the end of Spider-Man 3 and then done Spider-Man versus Venom. But anyway, that's what they should have done with Tom's version. Wait until after Endgame, and then they could have done Far From Home, or even waited. And maybe they decided they didn't want to do that because of the issue with Spider-Man 3. But who knows? But they could have totally waited until Tom matured a little bit into his character, and we got this experienced version of Spider-Man, and then Tony is gone now. He doesn't need Tony. He can do his own thing, and then he gets the symbiote on him, and then the rest. Like they should have. That's how it should have been done. Instead, they were like, well, we want to make some money, so we're just gonna throw this movie together and hope to God, just because it has Venom in the title, it's gonna make money. And of course, I went and saw it. Of course, I enjoyed it, but it's weird. It's weird if you go in knowing who Venom is, but if you don't know who Venom is at all, it would make no sense. You're just like, who is this alien that comes from where and why? What? And they have he looks kind of like Spider-Man, but why? Like it's weird, right? It's almost exactly what it would be like if we go without Tom in the MCU and be like, oh hey, remember that guy that you used to hang out with, and didn't you fight some purple dude in space? Oh yeah, you can't talk about that now. It's just really weird. It's like it's having this character in a universe that got removed from it, and it doesn't flow. It doesn't make any sense. So now Sony's got their Venomverse, and they're gonna do Silver Sable and maybe a Black Cat movie, or maybe that got scrapped and got turned into a TV show. I don't really remember, but I know they got a Morbius movie coming out, which is supposed to be in that same universe, and it's frustrating because why, right? Has anyone asked for a Morbius movie? I sure something. I mean, Morbius is cool. He's my least favorite. I want to say one of my least favorite villains. I think the Chameleon would be a great villain to do. But anyway, that's something going for another day. Continuing on with the rant. So we had Venom and the Venomverse got created, and then we had Spider-Verse, right? Spider-Verse was actually really, really good. Animation was great. But there's like a small part of me that wished now where we're at, that wished that it failed. Only because the fact that now that Sony can see that they can actually make a decent movie beyond Tom Holland. They think that, oh, we made money with Venom. Oh, we made money with Spider-Verse. Now we can make money on our own. We don't need you, Kevin Feige. It's like, no. Yes, they made Spider-Man 1 and 2, but here's the thing. If they would just leave the creative decisions to the directors and the people that are supposed to do it alone, this is what happens. They make good movies. Now, Venom, I don't know. But I think Venom was lucky. I think it was a fluke. I don't know. I really don't. But Spider-Verse, I feel like they didn't really mess with that movie at all. If they did, I definitely there's no seed planting for. There kind of is, but not really. There's no huge seed planting for sequels and spin-offs into the Spider-Verse, and it's great. It's amazing. It works, and it's awesome. It's really fun, and the animation is phenomenal, and you don't feel the forced spin-offs that you see in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. And so it's just irritating because now it's like, oh, we did a good job with Venom, we did a good job with Spider-Verse, so now we're gonna go out and we're gonna make, we don't need Tom in the MCU anymore, we don't need Kevin Feige, we don't need you anymore. It's like, you guys are stupid. Marvel just made you $1 billion worldwide, and you think that it's just okay, we're good now. Like, yes, maybe, but it's so weird though, right? Because now, like I said earlier, if they can't even mention Endgame, they can't mention Infinity War, they can't mention Tony, which Tony is basically the new Uncle Ben, let's face it. So it's like, how can you have this big figure? And here's another thing, right? That before I cut off that, let me finish what I was thinking about. Sorry. So they have this figure that he has that he's looked up to this entire time, the Avengers and Tony Stark, and he can't even reference them now. Can't reference them at all. Can't even have one of them show up in the movie now. No more Nick Fury, no more Happy, no Thor, Captain Marvel, none of that. You won't get any of that, and that's also really frustrating because I think that's what made this arrangement also so cool, is that, oh, we finally get to see him interact with all these different characters, and it's just sad to see that end. Where was I? I was talking about, so back to what I was saying, he's not able to interact with any of those characters, and it's frustrating, because it seems like, maybe he would build a relationship with some of these other characters in the future, and maybe show up for like Avengers 5 or Young Avengers, and maybe Peter becomes one of the main leaders of the Avengers. They were really gearing him up, at least it seemed like to me, especially Kevin Feige, where Kevin Feige comes out and literally says that he believes that Spider-Man is the greatest superhero of all time. But it really seems like to me they were gearing him up to be the center of the MCU, especially at the end of Far From Home. And I'm not going to say, if you don't know what's happened and you haven't seen that movie, you probably need to click out of here. But anyway, it's super frustrating just from a fan's perspective, because it really seemed like he was going to be like one of the leaders of the MCU, and Sony just doesn't care. And I can't blame it all on Sony. I have to put some blame on Disney too, because it's like they walked away too, right? They could have stuck with their original arrangement, but instead they were like, nah, we want some more money. And of course Sony is like, well, I like money, and I want to keep the money that we were making. We just made $1 billion, so we don't even need you anymore. We got the money we wanted. So it's super frustrating from a fan perspective, because it's like, you would rather have more money than make a decent story and keep flow with Spider-Man in the MCU. You would rather just have more money. Fuck the fans. Screw everyone else. Screw the creative direction of the character. We just want money. And that's really what it boils down to. And that's the most frustrating thing. And it's kind of maddening because it's like things were going so well. And it's so funny, I never lost sleep over this, but now it's like, now it's happened. It's like, wow, never thought that would happen. You know? So it's like, I don't know. For being a Spider-Man fan is frustrating when it comes to the movies. It's always been in a battle, that uphill battle, I guess. Yeah, so. And now the CEO has come out and says that the deal for Spider-Man being in the MCU is closed. So it's just, this is classic Sony, really. I mean, yeah, Disney has a part in it, like I said earlier, but it's, you know, this is Sony just being overconfident. Oh, we're great. We did great in Venom. We did great in Spider-Verse. So now we don't even need you anymore. So it's just like, really? Really? So anyway, that is that's about it for my rant. I just had to get that off my chest. I don't know. We'll see. I really hope that they come together and maybe Disney will come back and be like, hey, well, we changed our mind. We actually just want to keep that same deal. There's something that I read that Sony has said that Kevin Feige is too busy tied up working on the new franchises, so he doesn't have any time to work on Spider-Man. But I call bullshit on that. I call bullshit on that 100%, and I'm pissed that Disney hasn't come out and said negated that. Just because, just the way that Feige has talked about Spider-Man in interviews, that you know, that he said that he's the greatest superhero of all time. Why would you say that, and why would you set him up to be the center of the MCU if you were gonna be like, well, Feige just doesn't have time anymore? Like, I don't believe that at all. I believe that if he really needed to, he would take the time to make Spider-Man right and build this character up Harry Potter style like they've been planning. And he would have time to do that. He would make time to do that, right? I strong advocate that that's how that would have gone down, and it should be going down. So, I know. If Feige doesn't have time to work on Spider-Man, then, well, that's just a damn shame, really. Anyway, yeah, that's about it for my rant. I just had to get those things off my chest. And I don't see Sony making any smart decisions with the character going forward. I mean, we'll see. We will see, right? And Tom Holland, of course, for PR reasons, he's just gonna go out and say that, you know, Spider-Man's in safe hands. He doesn't think that anything bad's gonna happen, which I don't think Tom will ever hear Tom say anything bad about Sony just because, you know, he loves his job, right? So who would, right? What would you do if you were playing Spider-Man in a big giant movie? You'd end up like Andrew Garfield, right? And just duck a meeting from a exec, and then all of a sudden your character gets rebooted. So I guess the cool part is hopefully we'll get the Spider-Verse with Tobey and Andrew and Tom, either animated or live action. Probably, I don't know. It seems like either one of those could come out in just about the same length of time because it takes such a long time to animate those movies. And then obviously, who knows if we could get Andrew and Tobey to come on for a Spider-Verse movie. Who knows if that even happened. They'd have to probably work out a little bit, at least to put on the suit. I don't know if they even need to, who knows. But anyway, I'm rambling really bad at this point, but that's all for now. And if you feel like it, go ahead and web up that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you in the next Spider Venture. Just remember though, great power comes great responsibility.